Welcome, Debjani and Abhishek. Look forward to our conversation. We really are at a digital acceleration or revolution, if you may call it, and India is leading the world in many spaces, including the identity system that we have with Aadhaar and the platforms like payment innovation. And Debjani, you are very much in the middle of the whole entrepreneurial ecosystem that is building in the country with the third largest startup ecosystem in the world and 44 startups that became unicorns just last year. With the small and medium businesses in the country really using technology as the backbone to build solutions for the country. And we've called this a Techade, which will be accelerating the inclusive growth in the country. Let me start, and would be good to hear both of your comments. Let me start by asking Abhishek. One of the biggest opportunities we have today is driving inclusive growth with technology, and we are seeing the billion scale public platforms. How can India use technology to enable economic, financial, healthcare, and educational inclusion at scale?
Thank you. Thank you. And it's indeed a pleasure and joy to join two of the most accomplished tech leaders of India who are helping us show the way with regard to what all we can do and in what ways we can work together in partnership with industry and to make the goal of Techade a reality. See, when we talk of inclusive growth, that goes without saying because we, as we know, we are a billion plus country. So anything that we design, anything that we make, especially in the digital platform, we always have to address from the point of view of that will it create a digital divide? Will it ensure that everybody gets equal access, or will it create a realm of digital haves and digital have-nots? So whether it was under the National E-Governance Plan, Digital India, the common service centers which allowed access to public services for citizens in remote areas who did not have a smartphone or who did not have a connectivity or who do not have the skills to access that. So right from the institutionalization of the common service centers to building services with a mobile first approach, because we know that 90% Indians access services through mobile phones, making services available in vernacular languages, designing in a very simple, easy to way use approach so that everybody can use it. So whether it's the UPI, which has led to adoption beyond imaginable levels with the transactions exceeding $100 billion per month, or whether it's the DigiLocker, wherein we touched the milestone of 100 million users yesterday only, or the Aadhaar, which is enabling DBT, or the vaccination platform, which allowed us to track 1.8 billion vaccine doses. And that was again something which was very challenging because people thought that whether Indians across the length and breadth of the country will be able to use such a digital platform or not. But it was the way it was designed by keeping the citizen at the core of the way we think of a system, which allowed walk-in registrations, which allowed people to use multiple IDs, which allowed people to get SMS alerts with regard to when the vaccination dose is due. So that all led to an inclusive approach in designing all our systems. And the second important thing that we have done is that whenever we design systems at scale, we also use technologies which allows us to scale rapidly so that any system that is designed should not only work for in the pilot phase or a proof of concept phase or in a limited way, but it should also deliver the same results when it is scales up. Like again, the example of COVID comes up. Like when last year we had almost 25 million vaccine doses on one particular day in September, that day the number of API hits were going beyond 1,000. So the architecture of it, the way it was designed, ensured that it succeeded. And the other initiative that is going to make all our applications more inclusive is making things available in multiple Indian languages, voice enabled internet, or making services available on the voice interface is the next frontier that we are trying to go to on Umang platform, wherein we have more than 1400 services available on the mobile platform. Then we are trying to build up a voice interface where people will be able to access services just like we talk to an Alexa or a Siri, and we'll be able to do that in the language of our choice. So that would ensure that the next 500 million people in India also start accessing public services. So I think these are the few, partly driven by the requirement that we have and partly driven by the successes that we have seen. The overall approach in designing tech solutions for public service in India has been inclusive, and we hope that with language and voice coming in, it will become more over encompassing, leading to billion plus people accessing online services.
Absolutely. I think you called out some really important points in terms of making sure the digital divide is addressed from the get-go. I know, Debjani, you speak very passionately about the Techade for India. How do you think India, from an industry perspective, is driving digitization in a way that we can really going towards this bridging the digital divide? How do you think the industry is playing a role?
Rohini, first let me take a second to talk about the concept of decade, because when at NASSCOM we were debating what's the term we should use for this decade we are getting into. We realized this is a decade where we will have no choice but solve some of the biggest problems facing humanity. Because if we don't address climate change, we don't address inclusion, it will 10 years, it'll be too late to do anything about it. So it's now. It's do or die. We have to do it now. And we also realize that this is also going to be the decade where the power of technology will be tested to the ultimate limit, because it is technology that will have to be used to solve these problems. So that was where the term decade came from, because this is going to be the decade of big problems or big opportunities, however you want to see it. And this is going to be the decade where technology pretty much gets reimagined in terms of its usage. And going back to your question, um, I think as industry, we have to ensure that that's the lens we apply when we are designing our technology, when we are inventing our technology, when we are developing our technology, and of course, when we are scaling and using our technology. In fact, without industry, this cannot happen, because uh, this is, and I think what Abhishek talked about and what India has done is a great example of two things. First, the fact that inclusion and innovation goes hand in hand. I strongly believe that no other country has been able to demonstrate that as impactfully as India has in the last 2 years. Every example that Abhishek gave was an example of brilliant innovation and brilliant inclusion coming together right from start, right? So that has to happen. And the second, it has to be about partnerships. It has to be about industry, startup, government, academia. Everyone has a role to play, and everyone has to come together to make it happen. So, you know, I strongly believe that what's needed for us to all leverage this opportunity that we have in front of us, and to ensure that we do not waste this moment in time that we have to create a future, is really figuring out what should be the design principles. And when you think about and I've been we since ever since we came up with Techade, we've been thinking about the design principles of the Techade. And I think the design principles of the Techade has to be human centric innovation. It has to be security, it has to be inclusion, and it has to be scale built into the start, built into the design of technology rather than an afterthought. And that's goal in front, or big challenge in front of the industry, is how do we come together to create and embrace these design principles, so that the kind of innovation that we are coming out with, and the models, the business models that we develop, will enable us work hand in hand with government to drive some of these big challenges, because the time is absolutely now.
In fact, it was very interesting to listen to Debjani highlighting the importance of partnerships and how industry and government have been working together. And in fact, I must mention here that Rohini, you have yourself been a very important part. You and Microsoft been working with the industry and with the government. In fact, I remember during the COVID-19, we worked with the Microsoft and Accenture to develop the chatbot that we deployed on MyGov. And you have been like an active member in all our efforts that we have been doing towards involving all stakeholders in not only policy formulation, but actually going ahead and collaborating together for developing solutions. So from your lens, how are you kind of enabling tech inclusion in our country, and how do you think we can make these partnerships stronger and better?
Thanks, Abhishek, and really appreciate those comments. And I think, Debjani, the point that both of you have made about ensuring that India uses this decade, it's a moment in time, it's a moment in history, and uses this at the right, through the right design principles, so that we are building technology by design to be inclusive. And two areas that I might focus on, one is on access. At the end of the day, access to information and opportunity is key for inclusion, whether it is jobs, whether it is just knowledge, information, education, all of those. And the example that Abhishek you made about the chatbot that we developed was really critical. At that moment, people needed information on the time at in any language they wanted, and that's what we see happening with languages in Indian languages across the board, even text to speech and speech to text capabilities. You don't have to be a literate; you can actually speak to the device, right, and be able to access information. Language translation now supporting more than 12 languages. These are all abilities that provide the kind of access to information and opportunity. The second one I would put take in terms of inclusion, which is very close to my heart, is that of including the disability divide. India has one of the largest segments of people who are in various spectrum of disabilities, which includes not just physical disabilities, but also learning disabilities. Now, how do you use technology to build in accessibility, what we call in by design into products and services? Because that then includes people, whether it is vision disability or hearing or any other form of disability. And we know that there are learning disabilities our children are facing. How do you ensure that they are having the same access to, again, information and opportunity that most of us take for granted? So I think love those comments, absolutely. Let me switch to a little bit to say that, inclusion is absolutely the way to do, and Devjan, you called out that inclusion and innovation go hand in hand. But one interesting trend I see in India, at least over the last 4 5 years, is very heartening that we are becoming the innovation hub. We've been the hub for a lot of the global capability centers, and our tech industry has been the center. But now we are really becoming that startup capital of the world, with the third largest startup ecosystem in the world. And more companies are looking at India to really do innovation in deep tech. So it's not just about talent volume, but it's the quality of talent and the kind of deep tech talent that we are looking to. And to me, that is super exciting. So maybe from there, I could ask Debjani, how do you think that, what are you seeing? And I know a recent R&D study was also released, but how do you think the innovation potential for India can really drive that growth of startup and deep tech sectors and make India that innovation hub for the world, which would be such an amazing opportunity to capture at this moment.
So thanks, Rohini. And you referred to the research R&D report. In fact, that report is a study that KPMG and NASSCOM has done of over 18 countries to identify how are countries emerging as innovation hubs, and who's leading and who's not. And it was so wonderful to see India lead on all the four key parameters, and becoming a strong leader in all the four parameters. First, cost advantage. We can never underestimate the importance of cost advantage. It is always going to be important, and it's while we may not be the cheapest place, but definitely we have a strong cost advantage when you look at the overall ecosystem. Second, and very important, talent advantage. And for us, talent advantage is not just the 1.6 million digitally skilled pool of talent available, which is by far the largest in the world. And I'm talking about digital skills. STEM is way bigger than that, around 4 5x bigger than that, right? But just digital skills, which is the hot skills in demand today. But also, if you look at it, our talent is one of the most inclusive, with around 36% women. Our talent is much more diverse, with a large percentage of the talent in smaller cities in India. So the talent story in India is getting richer and richer by the day, where it's an inclusive story, it's a diverse story, it's a story linked to development of tier 2, tier 3 cities. And at the same time, thanks to the tremendous support we have from Mighty, we are continuing to fire the future skills initiative, all guns blazing, to ensure we continue to build to the overall talent pool. So that story is getting recognized globally. Third is just ecosystem, the power of a connected ecosystem in India. Very few countries have the best of both worlds, where they have a very strong, innovative local ecosystem, not just startups, but local IT companies, local product companies, and doing very well. And then you have the GCCs or the multinationals who have some of their leading R&D work happening in India. So we have the best of both worlds, and I truly believe we are truly blessed with a connected ecosystem, which is tremendous advantage to any company who's looking at India and trying to figure out what the ecosystem looks like. And the fourth is ease of doing business. I think the government, beyond doubts, and I don't say this because Abhishek is here, but beyond doubts, this government has proved that we are for technology, we are for industry, we are for reforms, and we are ready to work with you, right? So people have seen big reforms, like the OSP reform. The people have seen the drones reform, big policy changes and being made very easily. So I think the confidence in India now is an all-time high, especially with all the geopolitical dynamics that's playing out around us. I think the confidence in India is absolutely an all-time high. And I call it the four-pronged India advantage: cost, talent, ecosystem, and government. And how do we sort of connect the dots even better between these four and tell that comprehensive India story is going to be the need of the hour for us.
Absolutely. And the comprehensive India story, the government being an important pillar in there. Maybe I could ask Abhishek your thoughts, and I know you've been driving a lot of in the ecosystem, startups as well as entrepreneurs across segments. How do you see the Indian ecosystem driving innovation, which is very much targeted to India as well? Because India has a set of challenges which you initially called out as unique. The innovations that we do, how do we make sure that we are really innovating for India as well?
Yeah, thank you. In fact, when we look at driving innovation to solve problems that India has, whether in any sector, whether it's agriculture, whether it's healthcare, whether it's education, whether it's NLP, languages, so any solution that is deployed for India will will naturally will work for anywhere in the world. So that's the advantage that we have, and the scale that we have at the population scale. So if we are developing a solution, if we are deploying it in India at a scale, and if it works at that level, then it will have all the characteristics needed for it to become a global scale. The challenge remains is that how do we ensure that we are able to nurture such solutions, we are able to nurture such entrepreneurs and startups who are building such solutions. The one way in which we have been trying to do at some level is to use hackathons and innovation challenges, wherein the government comes up and says that yes, this is the challenge on which we want a solution, and to be developed by startups or by innovators. And then we do several rounds of evaluation, and again my mind goes back to what we did in 2020 and 21 when the pandemic struck, and we were looking at various kinds of solutions, the first and foremost being a video conferencing solution, because immediately when we all moved on to the Microsoft Teams and to Zoom and Google Meets, the question came in, can we not have an Indian solution to do that? So immediately our then secretary Ajay Sani sir told us that why don't you do a hackathon? Why don't you try to do? Maybe there are few solutions, few Indians who are doing those, developing those solutions. So we did that challenge, and we were surprised to get 2,000 plus entries there. And then of course it went through several rounds of evaluations, I believe. During lockdown and beyond, I think Debjani and Rohini also were part of those evaluations. And finally, we selected a few of those solutions. One of them is, of course, the winner of that challenge, Bharat VC, is being used by the government for all our VC meetings that we do on a daily basis, developed by a small company in Kerala. And then another one developed by ServWebs, very again a small company in Jaipur. That solution is being used by income tax department for the honoring the honest, the faceless assessments that they are doing. So very simple example. But yes, government, when we throw open a challenge and we ask entrepreneurs and startups to build solutions, they will build not only for India, but they will have the ability to scale these solutions and deploy them anywhere else. Then, of course, the app challenges that we run, the hackathons that we run, the startup, the Smart India Hackathon, which Ministry of Education, AICT runs. So all those are initiatives through which we attract innovators to build solutions, and then we support them. And when we say support, support should not only be limited to just giving them a cash prize like a 2 lakh or 5 lakh. That's just like a drop in the ocean. What we do need to do is that, can we give them a contract? Can we give them a work order saying that, can we get them listed on the government e-marketplace? Can we ensure that they start providing this as a service to the government? And when any startup or innovator gets a contract to deliver a service to the government, his confidence level goes up. He is able to attract more investment. He is able to scale up his products. He is able to market his products beyond India. So that's the whole strategy that we have. Like, throw open challenges, get them on board, allow them procure those services, and go that. Over and above that, for promoting startups and innovators, DPIIT also has come up with certain norms within the government procurement systems, in which startups are exempted from prior experience and turnover criteria, so that we can procure services from them. That becomes very, very important. The third most important point that I would say is that, how do we support the startups, those who are building such innovative products, when they need funding the most? At the seed stage, at the accelerator stage, how do we strengthen that ecosystem? How does the government contribute a small amount of money and connect the entrepreneurs and startups with accelerators who work with them, who help them, guide them, develop their business models, and ensure that they are able to access fund of funds, in which the government may contribute very small sum of money, but the kind of investment that can be raised from other investors is huge. In India, we are just seeing the investments from high net worth Indians coming in the startup space, in the VC funding stage. But yesterday only I was in Bangalore, and we were looking at some of the robotic solution that has been developed in Art Park, and one was amazed at the kind of innovation that exists. So if we are able to institutionally support them by offering challenges for startups and entrepreneurs to work on, number two, building a mechanism for procuring those services which the government may need, and number three, creating an ecosystem for ensuring financing and funding of startups and entrepreneurs, will be able to nurture innovation that will help us in creating multi-billion dollar companies, not just unicorns, but companies which can dominate the tech space in the years to come, making this India's truly the Techade.
Rohini, I have a question, if I may.
Sure.
Okay. So, India, I think we're blessed to be in a country that has so many fascinating opportunities, problems, however you want to describe it, for innovation, right? And everything you touch gives you a new idea. So I've often wondered, how do companies prioritize where to innovate and where not to? So how do you do it? I would love to hear what are your design principles, or what do you use to figure out where you should focus?
I think great question. And I think I was thinking about what Abhishek was saying, if you can innovate for India, you can innovate for the world, right? And in that sense, India becomes, and I've been a fan of this for some time, India really becomes that laboratory to try things that you would not even consider in many parts of the world, right? Cost-wise, ruggedness-wise, just usability-wise. There's so many interesting challenges. I'll just give a couple of examples. One of the things, for example, we were doing with a nonprofit, it's a nonprofit organization that's working on predicting climate disasters. Now, in cyclone-prone areas in India, how do you use technology like AI and other technologies to be able to predict cyclone and their intensity, and be able to help people evacuate on time, right? Now, clearly, that's a solution that is applicable across the world. But in India, to be able to use AI and be able to use rooftops and be able to predict where dense populations are, be able to do it, really creates a ruggedness that is very challenging, and then an innovation for the world. Another one that I'll call out is We are working currently with IIT Madras on creating Indian Sign Language, which is a data set with AI for Bharat, which is creating AI models for Indian Sign Language, because Indian language has got certain characteristics, certain words, which are not translatable to any other language in the world. So some of those things are completely India-based, but we see that the ability to think about them, and it goes across sectors, whether it is healthcare, I gave a couple of examples, but whether it's healthcare, whether it's banking, manufacturing, we're looking at digital twins. Education is absolutely something that has completely changed, right? And we are looking at, for example, a startup that's using immersive game-based learning for students with coding with Minecraft. So a whole range of interesting ideas that are very much India contextual but have global applicability. And to us, that is most exciting about what India provides as that hub for innovation. And the point that you earlier made about the ecosystem, the talent, the cost, as well as the government. I mean, the four pillars that you called out absolutely play it out in the way we are thinking about innovation in India. Let me move to the third leg of the conversation today, and that's about talent. And we did touch about this earlier in the conversation, and of course, these three topics are very much interrelated. But the question I would have, Debjani, given that there is indeed a huge talent skilling initiative that NASSCOM is doing, and we are proud to participate in many of those initiatives as well, how do we make sure that we become a nation of job providers to a nation from a nation of job seekers? How do we have people come out from college and say, I'm going to create jobs?
Rohini, I think we need both. We need a strong entrepreneurship ecosystem, and we need a strong industry. I think we should have the best of both. I always whenever I'm given a choice, I always like to grab both, because why not? Why shouldn't we? But what we do need to do is we need to ensure that our education system is creating the mindset of an entrepreneur, irrespective of where he or she decides to go, or where he or she decides to work, whether it is in Microsoft or join Abhishek to set up brilliant platforms or start their own company. But she has to think like an entrepreneur. And I think for me, that is very important. And I think that's still an area where we have a lot of work to do. While our education system is, has a lot of plus points, when you look at the STEM talent that we create, the foundation that we create in STEM and technology, truly outstanding, truly useful. But I think with NEP, hopefully, we will move the focus a bit more uh, to creating character, to creating attitude. Education system should be all about building that curiosity to learn, to unlearn, and to continue learning for your life, rather than just learning a few skills. And that transition, and an entrepreneur mindset is a mindset that is always seeking out the new problems, that is always looking for the new opportunities, that is willing to take risks, that is willing to fail, that is truly collaborative. Curiosity is at the essence of it, and the willing and the passion to continue to learn, because you know that you die the day you stop learning. If our education system can create that mindset, India becomes unstoppable in my mind.
Given the access to information and innovation talent, the curiosity and the ability and the mindset becomes absolutely key. Totally agree there. The Skill India vision that we have, Abhishek, how do we combine the earlier discussion we've had on inclusion and innovation, and how do we take that skilling vision to the grassroots in the country?
This is a very important aspect that you highlighted. Like, of course, we have been working on several skill initiatives, the National Skill Development Corporation, the Skill India Mission, and METI's initiative, like the Future Prime Skills, has brought in a lot of courses which are in the reach of people, The Skill India Mission also works with several skilling institutions, which are their partners in the PMKVY, Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vriddhi Yojana, which is the main flagship skilling program. Which what it does is that it brings together several skilling institutes to expand and to get the volumes of doing that. But while all these initiatives are on, if we really have to like kind of take advantage and leverage the opportunity which is being created, especially in the tech space and especially in the AI space and all, how do we prepare ourselves? How do we future proof our youth in doing that? So several things come to my mind. One, of course, is the initiatives which CBSE has taken in trying to make the curriculum adapt to the needs of the society, like making AI as a subject, AI and data science as a subject that's offered in the class 10th level and 11th and 12th also, so that India's AI scientists start getting an early orientation towards what artificial intelligence is and how one can build in machine learning solutions and how one can go ahead and take jobs in this sector. Over and above that, what I feel is that in the data economy, the bulk of the jobs that will be created will be very basic, mundane jobs. Will require a lot of data annotators, will require a lot of data transcriptors, will require a lot of people who are skilled in tagging photos, videos, on the basis of which AI solutions can be built in. So we feel that millions of jobs in this field will be created. And how do we ensure that we do not lose out on that opportunity? So one ideas that we have been working on is that can we think of working with ITIs and polytechnics across the length and breadth of the country and ensure that their curriculum is modernized. They start training people in data science. They start training people in data annotation rather than running the usual courses that they do for mechanics and fitters, because those jobs may not exist. Similarly, if you look at the EV revolution that is happening, there also we require a different set of people who would be required to be trained in handling that. So that again requires reorienting the curriculum, redesigning that thing, ensuring that people are able to learn at their own place in a hybrid mode, developing more online courses like Future of Prime Skills are doing. In the budget, there was a mention about a digital university wherein one can acquire skills from multiple sources. Then we have been working on with the skill development ministry for kind of characterizing credits for various skill development courses, because very often a graduation course or a post graduation course requires you to do certain theoretical courses to be able to get a degree. But can we change that paradigm and say that yes, if you have acquired a skills which is certified by an agency, that also will count to an educational degree? So with the National Academic Depository coming in, with the National Academic Bank of Credits coming in, I foresee that in the next 3 to 5 years, we'll have scenarios in which in which the youth may be able to acquire skills and courses from multiple institutions. One may be able to do a few courses from, say, a triple IT, or a few courses from a Delhi university, and a few courses from a Calcutta university, and then together that credentials will be built in a digital kind of academic credential. So that would really kind of make the opportunities which are available expand and allow the youth to have greater choice. And if we tie it up rightly with the outlets that we have for delivery of these courses, because again these can not only be limited to the tier 1 and tier 2 cities, it has to go to the rural areas. How can we create skill development centers in rural areas? Can our common service centers transform into centers where they deliver such courses and uh, such skill sets are delivered in an online mode in almost every block of the country, if not every panchayat of the country? So when we are able to do all that, we'll truly be able to harness the technology has a power for delivering skilling courses. So these are some of the thoughts that I think we need to kind of focus on. We need to invest more. We need to work with the partners. We need to work with industry, because industry would have a better idea with regard to what kind of people they need. So if we are able to train people that the industry needs in our academic institutions and skilling institutions, we'll be solving both problem of having employable youth, like people who are passing out from college or universities do have skill sets which can help them find a job. So if we are able to address all of it in a holistic manner, adopt a whole of government approach towards skilling, work with all departments and industry, then we'll be able to solve this problem in a way that will help us realize the demographic dividend that we very often talk of.
Rohini, just jumping in for a sec, we have a tremendous opportunity right now in hand because so many of our good employees are out there in tier 2, tier 3 cities. They're all working from their hometowns thanks to remote work. And one of the things we're thinking through is even if we pick 5, 6 cities, how do we connect these people to the academia in those cities, the colleges, the universities, etc.? So they give like 10% of their time um, to work with these colleges and schools to help even reviewing curriculum or taking classes. I think if we can do that in a few critical tier 2, tier 3 cities, they can become the change agents. And they want to work out of these their homes, they want to work in these places, and it's a wonderful way to pay it forward when you are there. So would strongly encourage everyone to think about it.
Absolutely, you're right. And if I may give examples from the NASSCOM and the other tech ecosystems I'm a part of, people actually want to do that.
Yeah,
People,
yeah.
a lot of people really want to pay it forward because they feel that they are vested in the ecosystem. But I think these are such interesting topics that you and you three of us could continue talking for hours and hours. I know we are very passionate about it, but I want to thank you both for sharing your energy, your ideas, and your insights with us. We have a huge opportunity. It's a moment in history to be really a global tech and innovation hub and make this India's decade. So I look forward to working with both of you, partnering closely as on this journey. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Debjani. Thanks, Abhishek.
Thank,
Bye.
thank